We are going to now add what's called an emboss to the outside edge of our part. What I want you to do is I want you to turn your part so that the edge that you want to put an emboss on is showing. Now, what is an emboss? An emboss is like an extrusion that goes around a curved surface. It doesn't have to be a curved surface. It can be a flat surface too. But we're going to be putting it on a curved surface. So if you have a curved surface on the outside of your soap dish, I'd like you to use that surface to put the emboss on. The emboss is going to either have text or it can have enclosed areas that you put on. I'll put both on to give you an idea of how the emboss works. Before we do an emboss, we have to have a work plane that's off the part that we can put a sketch onto. So what I want you to do, and this is called a tangent work plane. So I want you to make a sketch on the top of your part. We'll make a new sketch. And I want you to put a line that's perpendicular to the plane where you're going to put your emboss. So I'm going to put my emboss right here. So I'm going to draw a line that is perpendicular to that, just like that. You see that? So I'm going to be putting a plane out here that's tangent to the end of that line. So I'm going to finish my sketch. There's no dimension or anything. You just put a line that's perpendicular to the plane that you want. And then I'm going to select work plane. And we're going to click on the line first and then the end point of the line. And you can see that it gives us a little indicator that there's a plane out there. Now, this is not the plane. The plane extends forever in all directions, but that's an indicator showing you where the plane is. It's perpendicular to this line. So once we have a work plane that's outside of the part, now we can click on the work plane on the edge of it. You have to put your cursor on the edge of the work plane indicator, right click, and say New Sketch. And we're going to create a new sketch that's outside of the soap dish on that plane. Do you see that? There's our sketch plane, and it's going to automatically line up for us. Now I moved it away so I can use the Look At tool, which is here. This is the Look At tool, and click on that plane to bring it back. Okay? Now, what we're going to do out here is we're going to put some text first. So I'm going to go to the Text tool, which is up here on the Draw tab, and I'm going to put the cursor where I want the text to start, which is right here. Now, by default, the size of the text is 0.12. We're going to make that 0.7, okay? Because I have a 1-inch high wall, and I'll make the text 0.7. It'll pretty much cover the side of that. It'll have a little bit of gap between the top and the bottom, which is what I want. And I'm going to type in putter. I don't know what else to put here, so I'll put putter. And you can change you can play around with the font. You can change the text style, whatever you'd like to do. Let's see, I'll do something. Let's do, what's that? Not good. All right, I'll do Times New Roman. There we go. Putter. Yeah, I don't like that either. Okay, so I'm going to select OK, and you can see that it's going to put the word that I type in on the work plane in where I put the cursor. So I'll press Escape to get out of the text tool. Whenever you hit Escape key, it gets you out of the current tool you're in. This allows me to position this where I want it, and I'm going to put it right here. Now you want to be careful with your embosses that you don't have areas that are beyond the part. That will mess up. It won't work. You want to make sure that your area, the thing that you're embossing, is completely enclosed by the surface that you're going to put it on. You still don't really know what an emboss is, but you're going to find out here in a second. I'm also going to draw a ball out here, so I'll just put a circle. That's a ball. And this is just giving you an idea of the things that you can do. Now, you're going to be able to put shapes, you can put text, you can put whatever you want out here that you can then emboss onto a curved surface. So we've got a shape and we've got text. So I'm going to finish my sketch now. And you can see exactly what's happening. I've got the text and this shape outside off the part that I'm going to then emboss onto this face. And if it works right, which I hope it does, it will curve the letters and curve the shape around the curved surface of the outside edge. So in order to make that happen, we have to click on Emboss. Emboss is over here by the Create tab near Extrude. It's right here, Emboss. So we select it. It wants to know what we want to emboss. Well, we want to emboss the text and the circle. It has to have an area. You can't emboss lines. You need to emboss closed areas, just like extruding closed areas. And the arrow here, this indicator will tell you which way it's going. Sometimes it points the wrong way. You have to make it point toward the face that you want to emboss on. And then we select OK and keep your fingers crossed, because it's kind of a touchy feature. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm hoping it's going to work. Yes, it worked. So look what it did. It took those shapes and wrapped it around at a uniform thickness. It wrapped it around that surface. Now see, an extrude would not do that. So that's how we put an emboss onto our part. Now that's a pretty thick emboss. So I'm going to go back to the emboss. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to edit the feature, just like you can any three-dimensional feature. And I'm going to change the depth. The depth here is how thick. It's like the extrusion depth. I'm going to change it to about 0.05. I'll make it half that thick. Because really the only reason I'm embossing excuse me, is I want to add some color to the outside of that, and that looks much better. It's not so awkward. Now you could use this also to add features to your soap dish. Let's say you had a fish and you wanted to add a scale, or you wanted to add a fin. You could do that with an emboss. So you can be creative with your emboss. All right, these things I don't want to see here, so I'm going to turn those off. So I'll right-click this plane indicator, and I'm going to turn off the visibility. It's also over here. Here's the work plane. You can also turn the visibility off here. And this line I don't want to see. That's on the sketch that I drew earlier to get the plane. So I'm going to come here to Sketch, right-click that, and turn it off. Just turn off the visibility. And then if I want to change the color of these surfaces, I can. You remember how to do that. You just select it. You just select that embossed. I can select the whole thing if I want. Go to Properties and change the feature appearance. Maybe I want it to be blue. Green and blue is not going to go together so well, but it's not too bad. And there you go. I've got my emboss on the outside of my soap dish. So I want you to, and this needs to have something to do with your character, something to do with your soap dish shape. It doesn't have to be words. It can just be shapes, but it needs to be related to your soap dish. So have fun with that, and we'll take a look at your designs here. We have one more thing to do on the soap dish, which is to add a sweep along the bottom. We'll be looking at that in the next tutorial. But before we do that, I'd like you to finish off your emboss.